back with Nick again today on the BI Edge YouTube channel. So I'm just having a bit of a play around here on Python today, just sort of having a look at a Opals mining data set. Or I was looking up here, replacing a couple of columns with licensee, with operator, just cleaning a little bit, a SA Petroleum data set, just having a bit of a play, did a pivot table and a few things. Now here on this line of code, just where the mouse is or cursor is, I'm just trying to open up this Excel file for Opals. So now I've loaded that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go print, and I'm going to go df columns, df.columns. Okay, so that's there. I'm going to run the code. Okay, so I can see the variables here, the different columns within this data set that I'm loading. So I can see their status, licensee, operator, operators. Okay, so I can go, right, well, I want to try and do my pivot table here. So if I just want to be quick here, I can just do, let's just say I want to just do a count here. So I can just go print. I'm going to do a df count so I kind of know how many rows and columns there are in the data set. Yeah, count. Okay, so I can sort of get a bit of an idea. It says 895 rows and 19 columns within this data set. I can sort of see here there's copper, gold, nickel, etc. So I can throw a pivot table in there to keep analyzing there in Python. So great way to sort of automate tasks here. This is just good practice. Getting PyCharm, the community edition, which is what I'm using here, is free. It's a pretty good tool to practice your data analytics on. So that is just something I wanted to touch on today before we get into what I'm presenting. So what I'm going to go through today is Western Australia petroleum industry leases. Now, guys, if you haven't seen the episode 1 within this series, I recommend you just pause this video and go straight to episode 1, scaling the Australian mining industry, because this will give you a bit of an overview of what I'm doing here with the flow chart, how I've automated this, and how I'm building this model, starting out petroleum market in Western Australia. So the first part of the Western Australia petroleum industry I'm going to analyze here is the titles. Okay, so the title status. So, how many, what's the title status of these leases? So this has come straight out of Power Query. Got my registered holders across here in a format where I can know who the joint venture partners are for each particular lease, because most of the time you get multiple operators under the same lease when we start talking about mining. As you can see, there's some Japanese-based companies here. Chevron is US, I believe. Might have that wrong. Don't hold me to it. And I can sort of go around here and sort of look at the developments and who's BHP partnered with. Oh, they have one with Shell there, and I can sort of have a bit of a look accordingly. Okay, with that data that's being cleaned. Now, if I look at leases and partnerships over here, this is what I've made here in the form of a pivot table to sort of check within this particular data set. Now, this is all historical based data. So, and it works on expiry year of the lease. So if I'm looking at mining leases in the Western Australian petroleum market that are expiring in 2025, I filtered this out to 2025, and I can see that EP 494 and L14 are both expiring this year. That's McCallum Group and PBE Operations. So I go, okay, well, anyone who's providing services to those businesses, something to sort of be mindful of, have they renewed the lease? And then if I want to have a look at in the coming years, what leases are looking to expire, I can filter that out and have a bit of a look here. So Strike Energy's got a few here, Ray Leonard, and I can sort of look through Gulliver Resources, Energy Resources. So that just sort of just tells me, where we're at there. Okay, if I just want to look at from a year perspective, so that's historical there. I can sort of go back in time and have a look at different periods here of leases. If I want to come up here, I can look at, okay, well, based on what leases are currently active here. Okay, so I'm looking through, these are all the currently active leases here in Western Australia at the moment. So I can sort of go, okay, that's pretty cool. All right, so I can see, Santos has got some, Strike, BHP, I believe. I think there's stuff's more offshore. These WA leases down the side are more offshore-based leases. Um, and you can sort of have a bit of a look there at the joint venture partnerships accordingly, look at who's expired here. Um, historically, can change that by filtering out the expiry year there. I can look at basin. So the Bonaparte Basin is the key basin sort of in WA, which seems to be an offshore-based basin here. Worth noting, so you can sort of see, okay, this is sort of what's gone on there and what's active there at the moment. Okay, there's nothing active there at the moment. So um, some of these data sets may need to be updated too. So this is, not a complete sort of truth, but it's a good idea if you're in the mining exploration industry and you're trying to pinpoint where the other players are within the market. Now, what I'm going to do and sort of show here is I'm going to show just quickly Western Australia mining industry. Um, WAMPIS maps. Yeah, I'll just leave that for now. So this is all the leases and partnerships here. Perth Basin is one to sort of look into. It's quite important, and so forth. Okay, so we can just get rid of all that now. Say, okay, all right, length of lease over here next. So this is important because you want to see who's been on what lease for what period of time, what the expiry year is. So once again, if I want to look at, what expired, what's expiring next year in 26, for example, I can see that Coastal Oil and Gas, EP 490, and I can go here, okay, but they're pending an extension, okay, so that's okay. But I can filter this out accordingly, and that's good to go. All right. And I can filter by type of title as well. So who's got exploration permits? So let's say I'm an exploration mining startup in this particular petroleum industry in Western Australia. Who are the other players in the market? So I can see here who those players are, what leases they've had, who sort of exited the market by expiry year. So I know throughout history who's been on what lease. And I can potentially take one of these leases where there might already be some survey data that may help me find petroleum faster than it could have otherwise, or there might be some pre-existing infrastructure on these sites. So this is all sort of good things to know, I guess. All right, coming over to the dashboard now, we're just going to do a few insights just to wrap this one up. So over here, we've got number of lease titles, active leases, pending renewal, and renewed. So this data's from 1974 to present on these leases. Okay, so we're going off lease expiry year here. So realistically, we're kind of working it out based on, okay, well, how many leases are going to expire in 2025? So there's two leases, two active leases there, one pending renewal and one pending extension this year. If I want to look at over time, 103 have been renewed, which would suggest that most operators or mining-based companies that mine petroleum in WA look to get renewals and extensions based on their lease with the Western Australian government to mine further, whether that's because they find more petroleum or not. is to be determined, but that kind of gives you a bit of an idea. There's 20 active leases at this point. So type of lease over time in Western Australia. So as we can see here, exploration permit wise, it's the white just here, and we can see that it's actually trended down over time. So basically, what this tells us is that more mining companies in Western Australia are choosing not to explore petroleum in WA. It's a smaller market of mining companies. Now, this could be due to some of the bigger companies monopolising a particular market within the petroleum industry. It could be to do with just less resources, some of the basins, or the more solid infrastructure-based basins onshore, such as the Perth and the Canning Basin, have sort of dried up a little bit more. And there's potential for exploration in the Officer Basin, but that infrastructure hasn't and investment hasn't been performed just yet. So we can get a couple of insights just from having a bit of a look at that. Number of leases by basin here from 1974 to present. Okay, so we can see that. Okay, so it's the Carnarvon Basin, sorry, not the Bonaparte, what I said before, with the most amount of leases. So the Carnarvon Basin has had a lot at 87, Browse 35, Northern Carnarvon 33, the Canning 32, and the Perth 28. These two, Perth and Canning, they're the two that I've sort of noticed sort of get a little bit in terms of where a lot of operators sort of that have exploration licenses sort of work out of in this sort of period of time. Once again, I don't work in the mining industry. This is just my interpretations from what I've read and what I've analysed in terms of the data. So we can sort of see here that Perth, Carnarvon basins, there's a few that are sort of looking to expire. There is some work coming sort of in the Officer Basin. Looks like some companies are exploring that region based on 2027 Canning Basin. So that's good just to know again, just to get a few insights there. Total leases throughout history. This is the last one. So coming down here, you can see that it's also trended down from 1974 through to present, which is about here. This is sort of forecasted for future leases based on the current market. Basically, what's sort of happened here, leases, less and less companies are taking out mining leases, which is similar to what I just sort of said about less operators have leases now. That could be due to a smaller number of companies, due to the bigger companies monopolising more of the market than, say, what was sort of happening around here. However, during the mining boom up here in 2008, 2009, before we saw the oil price start to sort of drop in, the GFC down here it was really strong, and there was a lot of exploration happening. Post GFC, we really haven't seen that sort of recovery. We had GFC, came back a bit, and then we sort of had that oil price drop in 2014, which sort of come down here. I know a lot of the bigger companies sort of stopped exploration, and then we sort of haven't really recovered since. Okay, so yeah, post in the comments and questions down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think that the Australian petroleum industry in Western Australia is going through a decline, and what do you think the future is for these companies? My personal thoughts are a lot of these bigger companies are now looking, they've moved sort of offshore to other areas such as PNG, for example, projects in Alaska and other places to retrieve petroleum and their commodities. And some of these companies have also moved into the renewable energy market as well. Okay, that'd be another factor. All right, cool. Thanks very much for your time today, guys, and I look forward to catching you in the next video.